Hi, and welcome to General Meeting. I'm Becky Sloviter. My guest this week is Ry Russo-Young. She's an incredible filmmaker, a documentarian, a writer, just really one of those creative forces that is inspiring to be around. And this was just a really fun conversation. We got in a lot of depth about her really one of the best documentaries I have ever seen, Nuclear Family, which if you haven't seen it, you can still watch or listen to this episode first, or you can go watch that incredible documentary. It's on HBO Max, and then listen to our conversation. Either one works, but we don't give too much away. But it is really one of the most moving, intimate. It's hard to put into words what that documentary means to me and I think to a lot of people. So highly recommend. She also just released her documentary, Call Her Alex, tracing Alex Cooper's first national tour with the Call Her Daddy podcast. That came out last year. So good. And Ry is just a really special person and a special filmmaker. And I love her brain. And I was also delighted that we share the same favorite TV show of all time in common. So stay tuned for that, although many of you will already know what the answer is. And I hope you enjoy. See you next week. Ry Russo-Young, welcome to General Meeting with Becky Sloviter. I've been so excited for this chat.
Thank you for having me.
I want to give a little context up at the top, how we met and connected. It was like a 3-hour lunch where we realized how much we had in common, and we just had so much that we connected on.
Absolutely felt the same way. It was so much fun. So excited to be here.
Okay, so at the top, just to contextualize, you are an incredible filmmaker, writer. You are also a documentarian. Your most recent documentary, Call Her Alex, was tracing Alex Cooper's first national tour with the Call Her Daddy podcast. You've done a lot of narratives, Before I Fall with Zoe Deutsch that I loved so much. The Sun Is Also a Star, Nobody Walks. Am I leaving any of your narratives out?
There were two feature narratives that I made in my 20s called Orphans and You Won't Miss Me. One played at South by and the other one played at Sundance, that were sort of my version of film school because they were very low budget, indie.
And then you also have this incredible documentary, one of my favorites that I've ever seen, called Nuclear Family. It's such a complex and nuanced portrait, but it's also incredibly personal.
It's about my two lesbian moms having, one mom had me, one mom had my sister, using different known donors.
Yep. I
knew them throughout my childhood as the men who helped make me, not as a father, but sort of as a family friend. When I was 9, my donor, Tom Steele, sued for me for paternity and visitation of me. And that became a very public, messy, first of its kind lawsuit that is still taught in law schools today. And I don't want to spoil it, but then I guess I will spoil it. Why not?
But everyone should go watch this incredible. It's 3 episodes. It's on HBO Max.
I really started out as a narrative filmmaker and started in indies, then did a little bit of studio stuff, and then always wanted to make Nuclear Family. I called it the family movie for many years because I had no idea what to call it. And was trying to crack it as a narrative script and could not figure out the third act. That's really where it came from. Is that I just could not understand what the perspective was on the material, actually. And you can't really write a third act until you really know what the movie's about.
Totally.
And so I couldn't really figure out, like, what I realized was how I felt about my biological father and about what happened.
Yes.
And then I realized that in making a documentary, it would allow me to not know the third act. And then I could discover the third act in the process of making the film.
Wow.
And one person is Paisy Holcomb, who was an editor that I hired to do a trailer. And she was just so influential in the decision to do this. Basically in showing me that it should be a documentary. And it's kind of an interesting process thing where I had her cut. I won a Creative Capital grant. for the project. And I had done a presentation, and I basically asked her to cut a 7-minute trailer, to raise money.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was a hybrid between documentary and fiction. That's
Okay.
what the movie was, because I was sort of gravitating towards documentary. I started in fiction, then we're like, okay, it's a hybrid. She cut that trailer, and then she said, I'd love to just cut a documentary trailer on my own for you. And when I saw that trailer, it was like my heart both sank and soared at the same time, because it totally showed me that it has to be a documentary.
Yes.
And it was so compelling without any of the narrative construction, just in terms of the characters and the narrative.
There is a wind is knocked out of you at that moment, as you're saying. And I think that's so emblematic of the doc itself.
Well, I was really scared also about making a Me and My Problems documentary, which is sort of its own genre that I sort of Ross McElwee aside had never really liked. And so I was very scared of that. So yeah, I think if it wasn't for basically my lesbian mothers being so compelling and all the characters really being so compelling as people in the story, having interest almost outside of me, then I don't think I would have had the chutzpah to do it.
And you spoke to this landmark case, really first of its kind.
Yeah. So just to give some context, my family, because my mothers were one of the first to do known donor insemination.
Yes.
There weren't a lot of gay families. I grew up in the 80s in the West Village, which you would think, there was a gay culture there, a strong gay culture, but there wasn't a lot of children.
Yeah.
So we were one of the first. And part of being one of the first gay families is sort of having to be the poster child of gay families and the perfectionism that came along. And in the 90s, it was really the conversation around gay families was, are the children sick? That was actually what the question was at the time. And so I was always the child who went on Lisa at age 16 with my mother, who participated in a PBS documentary.
Yep. And is that what some of that footage of
to say I'm not sick,
right?
To say I'm healthy, I'm normal, I'm happy.
Yep.
And so in a way, the making
child.
Poster child, exactly. So the making of Nuclear Family became like a wanting to show a more nuanced portrait than the one that I had portrayed throughout a lot of my youth.
Yes.
Because I was reacting to the culture.
Your sister, Cade, talks about that a bit as well, and the pressure of that. Your moms are so incredibly compelling,
I know.
passionate, wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think the bravery of you taking this approach to doing it, I imagine you're full of complex emotions as you're approaching this and going back and looking at tapes and all of it. Did you anticipate how much it would allow you to process?
I knew I wanted to tell my own version of the story. I didn't know how deep it would cut and that it would get quite as into my own psychology of why I was making it.
Yes.
And once I realized that it was a doc, I realized that it was almost like as I got deeper into making it, I realized how there was, and I talked about this, I was seeing a therapist, and I went to the therapist in the beginning of, before I made the movie, and I said, well, so this is indicative of the whole thing. I went to a therapist and I said, I really want to make this movie about my family, and I can't figure it out, and it's driving me crazy. And so I'm here with the intention of figuring out how to make this movie with you. Like, I need you to help me figure out how to do this.
Yep.
And he said, okay. And first male therapist I ever saw, amazing.
Amazing.
Not going to name him, but I love you, Dr. Schwimmer. And so then, and we worked for the entire making of the movie, and it was a process of, the deeper I got in, the more I realized that it was like I was looking at a closet door, and the door had been opened and it was just blackness inside. And I had to get in there, but I couldn't figure out how to make my way through the darkness.
You're then also in the midst of making it. So as you are the filmmaker, you are also one of the subjects. You are also the subject in certain ways.
My mothers are so compelling as characters and are so unselfconscious, much less self-conscious than I am. They just live their life according to how they
It's so admirable.
feel and see. And so their bravery and their charisma as characters
Yeah.
is what made me feel like I could do it. And
Oh, that's
the
great.
first cut, which was 2.5 hours long, because I thought it was a feature initially, had
Mhm.
very little of me in it. So I think I was sort of in denial about me playing a part in it. And I actually still think the movie works because of my mothers, mostly because they're who you immediately get on board with. You know, they're the narrative that you follow. And that's the narrative that I have been told my whole childhood.
Right.
So I get people on board with the story that they have been telling me that I know that I'm very comfortable with.
Yes.
And then as that starts to shift, that's a whole other thing.
Were you, as you're going through it, able to be really present in the moment of discovery of, I feel a little differently about this, or is the light coming into that closet?
I mean, the thing is that I knew I'm very type A as a person and very prep heavy and all of that. So I knew the whole narrative going in. I knew acts 1 and 2, like rock solid.
Yeah.
So it was like I had an outline that was very strong that didn't change that much, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, my editors were incredible. Paisy Holcomb, the one who cut the trailer.
So good.
And Ben Gold. They were amazing. But we really had a sense of the narrative until I realized that it was basically after the rough cut came in at 2.5 hours. Me and the producers, Dan Cogan and many others that were amazing, all sat down and said, like, okay, so am I cutting an hour out of this movie or are we making it into a series?
Yeah.
And what I realized is that an hour and a half would be devoid of historical context, and the story itself could not be divorced from the historical context, which the movie gives while telling this really personal story.
Yes.
Of sort of the story of one of the first gay families and the legal troubles and the history of lesbians in the court system and with children and all that.
The beautiful way in of your mom's, we get to know them, their
Right.
love story,
Their history, yeah.
which is beautiful, and they are individually and collectively.
Yeah. And to get back to sort of the filmmaker, like, you know, slash subject thing, is that I felt really clear as a filmmaker because I really knew the narrative until the third part. And then I felt totally lost in the darkness. Like when I talk about the darkness, I just mean the third part.
Right.
And that's
right.
why the third part was really the discovery. So it was great. And to Dan Cogan, my producer's credit, the first cut, as I said, the 2.5 hour rough cut, didn't have that scene with my mothers at the end. And he said to me, I think you need to bring some of Chris's footage to your mothers and share it and talk about with them. And that was another huge moment where I was like, oh, no, you're right. And I said to my moms, this is going to be one of the hardest discussions we're going to have. I'm going to ask you really tough questions, but I know that we as a family and as a relationship can survive this because we can.
You're so connected, attentive, attuned parents.
Totally.
A really close bond with your sister. It's like everything a family should be. And then it's being questioned and threatened. I'm astonished by your bravery. That conversation that when you do bring the footage of what Chris is saying, and you know, she was such a compelling character too.
She's amazing.
Do you continue to process all that has happened?
Well, it's interesting. I think what happened for me in making the movie and at the end of the movie was that I realized that I could have, it's very basic and yet it's that I could have multiple feelings at the same time and that they can contradict each other and they are all okay to have and to hold. And I don't need to sort of, you know, say, okay, that's it, or like close the box or tie the bow or anything.
Yes.
And that we can hold that complexity. We can hold two things at once or I can.
Yes.
And that's okay. And that has sort of been the piece that came at the end of the movie and the piece that has come to me since. So there's not as much discovery since. It's more like, okay, that's how life is.
It can be both. And it can be more than both. It can be and that's, again, the complexity and the nuance that you touch upon in the doc, but is also just emblematic and representative of life and of explaining. I also find like it is a very simple concept, but it is actually hard, I think, for our working overtime assaulted by the times we live in brains to hold.
Well, it's also been really moving releasing the doc because the amount of people from all different backgrounds, be it gay families or divorced parents or immigrants that had like border culture, say to me, like, or my uncle, I had a really complex relationship and it reminded me of my own family and helped me get the bravery to talk to my own parents or, those relate, like family is just, it's like ground zero for everyone and everything.
Yes.
And my hope always with the movie was to communicate like through the personal to talk about more universal themes and to make other people think about their own families.
Like A+. It's an incredible historical document, and it's just beautiful. It is really one of the best documentaries I have ever seen. I cannot encourage.
Becky.
Oh my God, I can't
Nuclear
encourage
Family
people.
is what it's called.
HBO Max. Okay, so if we could go back to the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
Born and raised in New York City.
Born in Berkeley, but then basically the rest of my life in New York City in the West Village.
You get a high-8 camera when you are in high school. Is that the first sort of glint in your eye that I want to be a filmmaker? Where does it start for you?
It basically started actually, when I was a kid, I was the kid who was dressing up in costumes and playing pretend and telling everybody where to stand. And we were always like orphans in boxcars that were actually princesses that ran away. Sorry.
Always a filmmaker. And a storyteller.
So, like into narratives and stories and dress up and really pretend.
Yeah.
And I needed to do it by myself. I wanted to do it with other people.
Yeah.
Then in 5th grade, I sort of discovered acting. I was in the school play. I played Gollum in The Hobbit. I was in one scene.
That'll do it. And
I was a really awkward 9-year-old, like braces, a lot of pudge, a helmet haircut, child of lesbians. So I had no vanity at all. And it was a really immersive role for me. And I was basically had this realization that you could play pretend with other people and that it was a sanctioned thing that people called acting.
Yes.
And that was like amazing to me. It was so much fun.
It just felt like it clicked in. Oh, that's great.
But then I started doing I studied acting in my, middle school, high school, a little bit in college. But at the same time, I was doing photography, and I made my first film in as a senior in high school with my best friend at the time, Lola Schnabel. And that was when all of the things that I was interested in, we weren't in it, we were just directing it. But when all of the interests that I had came together, it was like, world building, storytelling, visuals, pretend, like all of it just kind of, and it was like, wow.
And it clicked in.
This is incredible. This is like the thing that holds everything, all of my interests in one.
Oh, I love that.
And so then I continued to do some acting in college, but I was making a lot of shorts. And I really believe you have to make, or at least I did. I had to make a lot of crap in order to get to
the 10,000 hours and all of that.
Exactly.
Where did you go to college?
I went to Oberlin.
Were you a film major? Do they have that there?
They didn't have a film major, production. They had so I was a double major of visual art and cinema studies.
Okay.
And the whole time I was going, I was thinking, should I transfer to film school? So I spent 2 semesters at NYU, one doing documentary actually. I felt like I was learning a lot about art. Like they had a great visual art program at Oberlin. And I was doing like hybrid kind of performance video, like art. I wasn't sure if I was going to be a filmmaker this is in college.
Yeah.
In the art context of more like film-based, but performance, more abstract, a little bit artier. I was into Maya Deren and like all of early abstract. I was really into Bergman, Antonioni. Like those were all my first, like blew my mind.
Yeah.
So that was the context that I had for movies and movie making was much more abstract and arty than anything in Hollywood. So I wasn't sure what context it was going to be, if it was going to be like real filmmaking, like Hollywood filmmaking, or was it going to be more like art context. I made a live performance that was Little Red Riding Hood, but basically told the story of my sperm donor as the wolf and as me as Little Red Riding Hood. And it was called A Middle Ground because it was about compromise and understanding the gray areas between. So it was all prep for Nuclear Family in this weird way.
You put some of that in Nuclear Family, right?
I did.
Yes. Because I'm like, I know this. I do know this.
Yeah. So then I went back to New York after college and I started I made a short film that was 3 different actresses all play Marion Crane from Psycho at the same time, in 3 different screens, and each one a different thing happens in each scene. They do 3 scenes from Psycho, each one something different. They make a different choice in each scene, and that affects their fate in the shower scene, and they end up going into each other's screens. So it was sort of this like,
That's incredible. What is it called?
it's called Marion.
Okay.
It's on the internet, and
Yes.
but I was fascinated by I have a love of Hitchcock so much.
Yep.
And I was fascinated by Psycho, by the
Oh, yeah.
way that he killed his lead character off an hour in. I thought that just blew my mind.
Yes.
And I felt like, what happens to this character of Marion Crane? Like, what is her story? What is her narrative? And if she had made different choices, how sort of the domino effect of narrative,
Yes. Yes.
and of punishing women and all of those sort of delicious, interesting
Oh, yeah.
concepts. So that was shown. I was working in a dress shop at the time. That was shown and I also worked for Doug Aiken for a year on a project that he did called Sleepwalkers, which was projected on the exterior of the MoMA, which was so fun.
Amazing.
So that was shown in some art context, but that also played film festivals and like won awards at film festivals. And so it was still like, I was still straddling it, but I was also doing some dipping my toe in like performance, like PS1 kind of live performance in New York. And that was a world where I was like, how do you make money in this world?
Right.
How do you survive? Like, I didn't want to be a starving artist my whole life. Like, that seemed really depressing to me and just financially not viable. So
Totally.
I had an Iranian film mentor named Amir Naderi, who made a film called The Runner, which is pretty well known.
Yeah.
And he was making independent films in New York at the time. And my theater teacher from high school said, if you're into film, you should go meet with Amir and he'll teach you about filmmaking. And I did. And I went there and he was like, watch all of Godard's films in consecutive order. And I was like, okay.
Copy.
And then he was like, yeah, what'd you think? What's your favorite?
But that's so great.
And it was a great film.
Like
it was like my film school,
100%.
But it was all watching and all communication and all of that. So, and he basically said to me, you should go write a feature film for no money and go shoot it. And I'll help you along the way and just go do that. And then you'll be fine.
And was that Orphans?
That was Orphans.
Okay.
And so while I was working in this dress shop, I wrote this feature about 2 sisters who are estranged from each other, who meet up at a house in upstate New York and sort of like tear each other apart psychologically and emotionally and drink too much. And we ended up shooting it at my boss, Ann Sherman is her name. And she was the boss of the dress shop that I worked in. And I had gone to her country house in upstate New York once on like a summer work, like all the girls who worked in the shop went to her country house. And I realized at a certain point that the house that I was imagining was her house for the movie. And so I said, can I use your house for this movie that I've been writing? And she said, yeah, just pay for heat and you're fine. And so it was that thing where the whole cast and crew, which was 6 people, all in, went to the house Monday through Friday, shot those 5 days, and then went back to New York for weekends.
Incredible.
All women, super small, so DIY. Everyone wore a million hats, and it was. I storyboarded every frame.
Of course,
so uptight,
over-prepared.
So stressed
I love it.
out. I would just literally at the end of every day lock myself in my bedroom and cry while watching dailies just from the stress.
Totally.
So I'm glad I got it out of the way when I was 24.
Yes, you needed that release. And it's like you knew that. And then to get back up and do it again the next day.
I didn't know anything in retrospect. I was so...
But it's a bit ignorant.
Trial by fire.
Right?
Totally.
Like you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And so despite how obviously it can be both, it can be many things, stressful, but also incredibly creatively fulfilling, I imagine.
It was upstate New York in the winter and in 2006. And so there was a huge snowstorm all the time, like constantly. Like the whole movie is like blanketed in snow. And I was driving the van back and everyone's like passed out in the back. And it was so torrential, the snowstorm, that I was like, oh, am I going to kill all of the people in this van? Like they're all helping me with this movie.
Is this actually like, the story of this movie?
Death? Like,
We're all dead.
And I was like, should I pull over? Like, what do I do? And I got really scared because I also was a terrible driver and failed my driver's test 7 times and was from New York. So I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
So I was really terrified. And as I finally got everybody like back, and as I was like pulling in on Greenwich Street, I had this feeling of like complete elation and relief at the same time of, oh, I love this. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It's so scary.
Yep.
But I feel like I'm using 150 brain cells and I'm so challenged and I feel deeply alive.
Oh.
And then I was like, okay, I'm actually hooked on this. Like I'm hooked on the pain in this like adrenaline junkie kind of way.
Yes.
And so, yeah. And so that was like sort of when I was like, okay, actually, I think I want to make a movie. I want to do this crazy
This is
thing.
what I'm going to do now. Okay, got it.
Basically. But there was a lot of self-doubt. I mean, along the way for the next...
I think that's...
2 movies. The next 2 features I made, I was still like...
Was that, what was the next one?
So the next one, well, just to say what the next one is, because it kind of was birthed out of the first one.
Yeah.
So Orphans went to South by Southwest Film Festival, and I was sort of part of the Joe Swanberg Mumblecore, Andrew Bujowski movement group. We all knew each other. I acted in Hannah Takes the Stairs with Greta Gerwig and Mark Duplass. And so I was like part of that crew. And I, to be honest, sort of was under the delusion that if I made a movie, then I would become a filmmaker and I would have a job. And that was like so soul crushing. The movie got like, you know, a little DVD, no theatrical. And I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to, like, what now? What do I do? And so it's almost like I was inspired by the mumblecore movement and what my friends were doing, which is this like even more low budget improvisational style.
Yes.
And also I was so angry that the film wasn't successful. So I was channeling the anger, but I was also kind of looking at what I did wrong on that movie on Orphans. And I was so prepared, and it was actually I was so sort of uptight. And I did a lot of like first director mistakes where I was sort of like strangling some of the performances. And I felt that in the edit. Like I felt a kind of restriction and a formalism that felt slightly like tight.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something freer and more like wild, actually. So after I had finished Orphans and didn't know what the fuck I was doing, I went to a party and I ran into my best friend who I'd made the first film with, Lola, her younger sister, Stella. And I ran into her and she was like, so I heard you made a film. I'm acting now. Let's do something together. And she was always like my best friend's crazy younger sister who was just insane. But I always liked her. I've known her since she was a baby, basically. And so I said, yeah, let's do something together. And we got together and we basically made up a character named Shelley, Stella's, named Shelley, that was sort of like a worst case version of Stella in a way. And we wrote out a really long biography and then we sat like this and I interviewed her in character for like 3 hours and she was just improvising and whatever. Then we called some friends and we were like, do you want to come over? She's going to be in character. You can be whoever you want. And then we improvised some scenes. And then I went and I cut them together. And I was like, there's something really interesting here. I showed it to friends. I was like, I don't know what this is. Then I went and we filmed a little bit more. Like I kind of wrote some scenes. Then we filmed a little bit more, improvised. And the movie, and then I started applying to grants. And it was basically over the course of a year, it was this process of shooting, editing, raising money, shooting, editing, raising money, writing at the same time. For the whole film and showing it to people the whole way through. And it was like a wonderful it's one of the movies I'm actually the most proud of.
What's it called?
It's called You Won't Miss Me. And Factory 25 released it and it went to Sundance and it's already in like a really raw, great New York way.
What it sounds like also is Orphans was a very specific thing and almost as a reaction.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
exactly.
I'm so impressed with you for just being able to have that reflection of, I like a lot of what happened. There's some things missing in my...
I still do that.
Well, exactly. That's what I was going to say, because you touched upon this and I wanted to circle back to this. The self-doubt.
Yeah.
And I think
I'm big about talking about failure and self-doubt.
Right?
It's really important as a creative person. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's really important, especially for women, to hear that.
Definitely.
Sometimes the road can be very curvy, and sometimes you take this path and just the recalibrating of that and being able to then have those two movies under your belt. So do you then Nobody Walks comes after that?
Yes. So then, I mean, the first three movies were a really organic process where one flowed into the other. I had been doing commercials to make money at the time. I was working for a commercial director, started directing some of his B-roll named Warren Fisher.
You're still in New York at this point?
I'm still in New York.
Okay.
I'm making money doing commercials, and You Won't Miss Me went to Sundance. And then at the same time, Lena Dunham went to my high school, and she went to Oberlin, but she's younger than me, so I didn't know her at Oberlin. But we met at a party around the time that I had made You Won't Miss Me.
Yeah.
And she was like, let's collaborate. And I was like, definitely, because I hate writing. Because I'd realized that by then that writing was like, I'm dyslexic, and somehow writing was not. That's one of my critiques of Orphans, is like the writing could have been tighter or better.
Okay.
So, and then You Won't Miss Me was so liberating because there was no writing, because it was improvised, and Stella's like a poet in her own way, and her words are incredible. And so she has a co-writing credit on that movie because it was like so much of what her blood that she put in there.
That's so great.
Someone told me her face is like a car accident, like watching a car accident. And I really, it is like that. Wow. You can't look away. She's fantastic.
Wow.
But still, I still feel that way about her.
Yeah.
Like when I look at her, I'm
cool.
like, wow.
Yes.
So Lena and I basically just sat together like this and started writing out a story. And we wrote like we'd have tea and we'd sit on my floor and we'd just like kind of talk about stories, and then we'd make an outline. We made an outline. She went off. She banged out a first draft that was absolutely incredible. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, this girl's amazing. And she let me direct it. And I was like lucky enough to have that moment with her. And then she was writing Tiny Furniture, and then she was doing Tiny Furniture while I was shooting Nobody Walks.
Okay.
So It was sort of like a weird kismet thing. But then after Nobody Walks, that was sort of a tough period in terms of having all the meetings, because Nobody Walks had Olivia Thirlby, John Krasinski, Rosemary DeWitt, like really great actors.
Incredible.
Went to Sundance, released in Magnolia, but I think because Lena was doing Girls, and there was such an explosion around her, the expectation for Nobody Walks was like really intense. And I also made it darker, honestly, than it was probably on the page, because Lena's really funny and I'm not as funny as she is. So I think that then afterwards, I did a lot of these meetings in, like water bottle Hollywood
the
things.
couch and water bottle general meeting,
and met with people and just didn't get any jobs, didn't make a movie. And so I was sort of like, what am I doing? Like, what's next? Like I had that moment.
So then what is the next step for you? Is it Before I Fall?
I was still living in New York.
Okay.
I was trying to develop this horror movie that I might still make because I still love it. And I just read it and I was like, this is a great movie. It's not even a horror movie. It's a thriller movie. Anyway, I'm back in New York. I'm like, I can't go to film school. I'm too old for film school. Like, what do I do? And like, and it was I was still working in commercials, thank God. So I had some income. Yeah. But it was very tough because this thriller movie, I was working with producers, and they were like, you need, and one of these 5 actresses to get the movie made. And I was like, but I want to cast Chloe Sevigny. She's amazing. And she wants to do the movie. And they were like, no, you need the person who was in Lord of the Rings. And I was like, that person's not even right for it. And then they were like, and that person's not doing that movie either. So I was like, what? How do you do this? Then I had a meeting for Before I Fall with someone from the studio at Soho House, in very sunny. I was a New Yorker. It was so bright. And she said to me, you have to do better than this. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, is this a formal pitch? Like, I was so confused what this meeting was about. Yeah. Like, I was like, I read the script and we were supposed to talk about the script. I just didn't know how to do these general meetings. I had one meeting about it, never heard from it, never heard anybody. Get a call basically a year later from my agent at the time. And she said, the studio's not making that movie anymore that you liked. Because I had read a ton of scripts, and there were like 2 scripts that I thought were semi-decent.
I know,
and that was one
crazy?
Of them.
Yes.
And she said they want to go the indie route. and they're interested in you for that. Hire the woman for the cheap thing.
100%.
And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, yes.
Not to play my part perfectly, but yes, please.
Yeah. Well, I was just so happy to maybe be able to make a movie again. And so then, and I loved that movie.
That movie is so good.
So then I had a conversation with John Shestak, and he was like, you're hired. And I was like, what? I had one phone call. Like, we had one phone call. And then I would basically camped out at his office and were there for 6 months. And he and I were in the trenches together making the movie. And there was different.
That office on Larchmont?
Yes.
I haven't talked to Shestak in so long, but he's such a great guy.
And it changed. It was going to be at Lifetime for 5 minutes, but then we had already cast it. And I had found Zoe and adored her, Zoe Deutsch.
So good.
Who's the lead of that movie. And then Matt Kaplan swooped in, and basically then we were like off and running. But because I had been kind of soft prepping it for 6 months, I really had the movie in my DNA.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
It's beautifully done. It looks gorgeous. I was going to say
Michael Famignari did a great job.
I think your visual palette, taking advantage of where you guys shot, obviously also, and the architecture and the scenery and all of it. But Zoe Deutsch, that is the movie to me, and I'm such a big fan of hers.
Well, she did such an incredible job on that movie. And I remember I had the pleasure, the luck, whatever, of having people audition for that movie.
Yeah.
And I remember her audition so vividly.
Because you were like, there she is.
Yeah. And I remember I showed it to a friend of mine and I said,
that's Sam, right? Yeah.
And she was like, yes. And I actually just talked to this friend. She was like, I remember that tape too.
I love it.
She threw her bag on the floor and she started crying. And she was just like,
she's
in the scene.
Yes.
And I felt, and she was my true, I mean, I love, for me, like, I think the reason I don't like writing so much, but I love to co-write.
Yeah.
Because I love the collaboration.
I was going to say.
And Zoe is a true collaborator.
Yeah.
And like an amazing mind, you know, like actress, mind, person.
Yeah.
Brings everything.
Oh, I love that.
And we just had it was a hard shoot, but we had an amazing collaboration on that movie.
I couldn't be a bigger fan, and just, I revisited it. Hadn't seen it since I saw it, revisited it in prep to sit with you, and was just sort of blown away. It's really impressive, and it's really compelling. I made a time loop movie,
yes,
the one behind you.
I've seen it.
And so they're just the thematics, the challenges of making a movie like that. I admire how deftly you approached it. Great.
Thank you, Becky.
Yeah,
and that's a great movie too.
Thanks, man.
Palm Springs.
And I think this was the spirit when we had lunch that day. I was like, I want to work with you because
I want to work with you too.
Thank you so much. You inspire me on an artistic level and a leadership level. As a producer, I just want to be collaborating with someone that I want to go fight for.
Mm-hmm.
And because that is what it is. I mean, it is about being protective of the artist's vision. It is, what is best for the movie. It's a million things. You are a unique talent and clearly such a hard worker, so in it.
I love hard work.
Right?
That is the thing. I think you have to love it in order to do it.
Completely.
You have to love the work, but you also have to love it being hard.
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah. Exactly. And someone was asking me recently something about the podcast, and I was like, oh, I'm loving it. And it's so much work, but I don't say that in any ounce of complaining.
Right.
I love doing it.
Yeah.
I love hard work. I just want to feel connected and passionate about the work.
Totally.
That's it.
Yes,
and
exactly.
So I think that brings us to Last Looks, which is the segment we do at the end of every episode of General Meeting with Becky Sloviter. Either if you have a favorite movie of all time, mine is Say Anything, and that's why Lord Dobler's over my shoulder. But there's also a million movies that I love. So feel free to name one or to name a number of them.
Definitely an impossible question that I cannot answer with one movie, specifically because I really watch things. I try to see a lot, but I also really watch things that pertain to what I'm working on and where my headspace is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, well, what's my favorite movie when I was working on Before I Fall? Or what's my favorite movie when I was working on Sun Is Also a Star?
Yeah.
Or, so there's different buckets. But a movie that I've loved from my childhood that my sister and I can recite whole scenes from is Postcards from the Edge,
Oh my God.
which is Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine and Dennis Quaid, written by Carrie Fisher, about her relationship with her mother. It's just the combination of humor and pathos. I think as a girl, see an eye into the industry was really fun for me.
Yes.
But it's also really wry. It's also about drug addiction, which has always fascinated me.
Yes.
I love it.
I love that movie too.
Yeah.
I love that you and Cade can act out exact scenes. Who writes better than Carrie Fisher? Right. But it is so perceptive in terms of, again, the complexity of mother-daughter relationships.
Yes, absolutely.
That's such a great call.
So I could name a bunch more, but let's just leave it at that.
Absolutely. I am. My only follow-up, because you mentioned it briefly, and I also love Hitchcock. Do you have a favorite Hitchcock?
I have a couple favorite Hitchcocks. Suspicion is one of them. Mm-hmm. I also really love Shadow of a Doubt.
I've actually never seen that one.
It's very it's not a perfect film at all.
Sure.
Like there are some really awkward parts of it.
Yeah.
But I think Joseph Cotton's performance is incredible, and the dynamic between him, the sort of triangle between him, his sister, who's the mother, and then the teenage girl, Charlie, and sort of Uncle Charlie. He's the uncle and she's the young Charlie.
That's great.
And that sort of trifecta is just fascinating to me.
It's
more like the rich psychology of it. But I tried to show my kid North by Northwest the other day.
That's one of my favorites. And I think it's because my dad showed me when I was quite young.
Yes.
Your son is 9?
Yes.
Yeah. That's like about the North by Northwest age.
Yes.
There's nothing too scary, but it's really compelling. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
And never look at a train
but
the same way.
Kids also do really like The Day the Earth Stood Still, which I was really happy because I love that movie.
Yeah.
And they were both able to watch the whole thing and be into it, the whole time.
Isn't it just the best when you're sharing the art that you love with your kids?
Yes.
And that when they connect to it too. Oh, nothing better.
No, it really is.
Okay. Second question, music. You're stranded on a deserted island. You have 2 albums with you to maintain your sanity. What are those 2 albums?
Nashville Skyline, Bob Dylan. And this is kind of not as clear, but Parallel Lines, Blondie.
Love this. Say more on both.
Nashville Skyline is like my comfort. Like it makes me feel so. I grew up listening to Bob Dylan. Like I still have my mother's vinyl records that I will put on. Johnny Cash sings Girl from the North Country with Bob Dylan in that first one. So you get kind of a twofer.
Yeah.
But also just the collection of songs on that album and the feeling of like home, honestly, that brings me. And his writing is just so incredible.
I love that.
Dylan's that it's like you'll always continue to discover new meanings. You could listen to it over and over and over again.
Yes.
And it never gets old. And Blondie was just like I could I've always loved it. High school was like I used to and I could dance. That would be the one that I would get up and dance to.
I love it
on my desert island.
Exactly. What's so fun to me
with attitude too. Yeah.
Well, totally.
She's got such great attitude.
What I also love about this question is it like you're going to bring something that's very cozy and comforting and reminds you of home, and then also you can dance and you can have some fun and you can release this energy.
Yes.
Love this.
Or like shovel dirt or kill crabs or whatever it is.
We're going to Tom Hanks and Castaway this. Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. Third question is books. What is either your favorite book of all time or a book you've read recently that you would recommend?
I'm going to do 2 books. One is The Mysterious Benedict Society, which I'm reading to my 9-year-old now, which we are both loving.
Had you read it before?
No, never read it before.
Oh, love that.
I haven't even finished it. So it's a very much in process.
Okay, this is great.
And then I also love this book, The Best of Everything by Rona Jaffe, which is like the originals written in the 50s.
Okay.
And it's like sort of the original Mad Men meets Sex and the City. And is about a group of women who work at a literary magazine and sort of their trials and tribulations with men, both in the office and outside of it, and each other, and female friendship.
Oh, fantastic. Last question. TV. what are you watching and loving and would recommend, or what is your favorite show of all time? If you have one.
Can't do the favorite show of all time. I mean, actually, because you have it.
I do.
Then I will do my favorite show of all time.
Thank you.
Which is My So-Called Life.
Yes.
100%. Yes.
Did we talk about that at lunch? I can't remember.
I think we did. We must have.
The My So-Called Life lunchbox that is off screen here, but I reference in so many episodes. It is the greatest. And didn't it just hit you at the exact right time? And I know, never before or
no,
since.
I mean, I gave my sister the box set for Christmas, and we still, I literally referenced the Jordan Catalano jacket yesterday. I bought my sons both Jordan Catalano jackets, neither of which they will wear.
There was a guy that I had a crush on in high school who wore that jacket, and I was like, well, I'm done for now. He had long hair like Jordan Catalano too. That show is everything to me. I still feel that. It really is. Yeah, I love it. I love that you're choosing that. It deserves its flowers.
It's impossible not to.
One perfect season.
Any show I would mention would pale in comparison to that.
So true.
Staring down at me and
I know.
Brian Krakow. All of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I love it.
Yes.
Angela Chase Forever.
Ricky. Yeah.
I was referencing, it's so funny because you and maybe some people listening to this will get this. I was Tino to someone, and I was like, you know how like Tino, he's never seen, but Rand's always right. And then I was like, I just trailed off. I was like, nobody's understanding this. But if you get it, if you know, you know.
I totally know.
I love it.
I remember it. Yeah.
Ry Russo-Young, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was so nice to chat with you.
Oh, I couldn't be a bigger fan of your work and of you as a human. And I can't wait to hopefully get in the ring and fight the good fight for you one day.
Totally. That would be amazing.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I never know how to end, so I'm just going to get up and give you a hug.
That was good. Okay.
General Meeting with Becky Sloviter is hosted and executive produced by me, Becky Sloviter. Our editor is Jay Rothman. Our audio engineer and director of photography is Hector Fernandez. Our tech producer is Griffin Davis. And our theme music is by Jay Rothman. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would be so appreciative if you would subscribe or follow the show on whatever platform you get your podcasts. All of our episodes are on video as well on our YouTube channel at General Meeting Pod. Please consider subscribing there as well. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at General Meeting Pod. And more information is on our website, generalmeetingpod.com. Thank you, and most importantly, go Birds.